Hello. This morning I'm in a car, but don't worry, the engine's turned off, and so I'm doing everything nice and legally. We're not moving anywhere. But I'm in the car because I'm on the way to a retreat at the Mid-Essex Buddhist Centre, which is where I frequently attend. But I thought that this would be a good opportunity to record my video this morning, all about the first precept. So the first precept is Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami, which, well, it might be worth taking a few moments to translate what the Pali wording means. So working backwards, Samadhiyami means I accept, because it's the first person singular form of the verb samadhiyati, which means to accept or to adopt or to undertake, which gives you some sense of what it means. Sikkhapadang, so that's the second from last word. That comes from two words: sikkha, which is training. We heard about that last week, and padang, which means a footstep or just a step. So sikkhapadang means a training step or a footstep in training. Together, so Sikkhapadang and Samadhiyami means I undertake the training step. Veramani, so they're the last three words, is Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Veramani means it's a verb, or it's from the verb Veramana, which means to abstain or to refrain. It expresses restraint. But I'm reading some of this because I can't remember all of this. Yeah, I should probably discuss the meaning of Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. But actually, I probably discussed it last week when we explored the five precepts all together. So I probably should have done it then. I can't remember if I did it then or not. So Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the training step to abstain from, and that brings us to the first precept, which is Panatipata. So panna, which means a breathing creature, from ana, which means inhaling, and the pa prefix means endowed with. So it's endowed with inhaling or endowed with breathing. Pata, so panna ti pata, pata means to fail or to fall, or to end, I guess, but to fall. And RT, so panati pata, the RT in the middle, something like beyond or across. So RT pata means to fall beyond, which is a bit of a euphemism for dying or killing. So altogether, the first precept is about abstaining from causing living creatures to die. Okay, well, how can one cause living creatures to die? So there's the direct act of killing, but one can also cause living creatures to die by inaction. If someone was practicing the first precept and they see an animal or a person in a situation where they're likely to die, the practitioner may want to help the person or the animal in any way they can. The rules undertaken by Buddhist monks, it's a bit different for them, and nuns, they actually do take rules. They forbid the consumption of meat where the monk or the nun is aware that the animal has been killed specifically for them. But the Buddha is thought to have eaten meat. His last meal was something called Sukara Madhava, which might be a pork dish, or it might be something eaten by pigs. I think it translates to pig's delight. So it could be either. We can't be sure. The Theravadan tradition holds that it was a pork dish, and some Buddhists adopt vegetarian or vegan lifestyles to make it easier for them to practice the first precept, but others don't. I'm sure there's good justifications for both views. Talking about myself here, in 2017, so around 10 years after I'd started studying and practicing Buddhism, I decided that I couldn't reconcile eating meat with my own conscience, and I became vegetarian. And then just a few months later, I became vegan. So that means I've been vegan for the last 8 years, and at no point have I felt the desire to go back and consume animal products. I think if someone were to become vegetarian because they felt that they had to in order to obey the rules, the motivation would be wrong, and they might not be able to stick at it. I mean, Buddhism wouldn't call that ethical conduct, that's obedience. Obedience doesn't necessarily involve any emotional engagement. So the problem is, even someone adopting a vegan lifestyle can cause and will cause animals to die. Every action we take will cause some suffering. So just saying, oh, I'm vegan, therefore I'm doing the first precept, it doesn't quite work that way. So the first precept can be expanded from do not kill to include abstention from causing harm in all ways. It's a very lofty ambition, and everyone will inevitably fail. But by keeping the ambition in mind and trying to act to cause as little harm as possible works to break down the division between what we perceive as me, I, and mine, and everything else. Trying to avoid harm is one side of the precept. Now, as I mentioned last week, the precepts can be expressed in the negative way, so stating what we can try to avoid, but also in a positive way, so stating what we can try to cultivate. The antidote to causing harm is radiating love and kindness through our actions, our communications, our thoughts. And in this way, all of the other precepts are just refinements of that first precept. They're all ways to try to reduce harm and radiate kindness. The positive formulation of the first precept can be given as with deeds of loving kindness, I purify my body. What's loving kindness? Loving kindness is an English translation of the Pali word metta, or the Sanskrit word maitri, which is an important mental or spiritual attitude in Buddhism and one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, which we'll discuss in a later video. The first precept, the first positive precept, is about performing actions that are expressions of this attitude of loving kindness. So as a Buddhist, I look for opportunities to be kind to people. What does it mean to be kind? Well, to discern kindness, I try to develop my positive emotions by practicing the metta bhavana meditation technique, which we'll come back to another day, and by engaging in activities that encourage positive emotion to arise. Positive emotions can be developed in lots of ways. For example, by engaging with art, poetry, or by giving, or spending time with good friends, or helping people in need, or spending time in nature. They're all different ways that we can cause positive emotion to arise. So I don't want to get into moral subjectivism at this stage, but there's something ineffably wholesome about loving kindness. You can feel it. Very difficult to put into words, but it's important for Buddhists to engage with the first positive precept as well as the negative precept, because it provides training actions of things we need to avoid, but also training actions of things we need to cultivate and do. It's pragmatic and creative rather than dogmatic and reactive. I think we looked at what purify meant last time, so be more like the Buddha. That's what we mean by purify. And when we talk about purifying the body, we're talking about being more like the Buddha in the actions that we undertake with our body actions, as opposed to communication and thought. And they come up later in later refinements, although I suppose communication and thought also are acts of the body, which is another reason why the first precept really covers all of it. Yeah, I think that's all I'll say about the first precept for now. So next week we'll look at the second precept, and I hope you'll join me then.